Hey guys, we're back for another episode of Craft Beer and Data. My name is Nick Piette, Chief Evangelist at Talend.
I'm Mark Balkenende, Director of Technical Product Marketing.
And with us today we have Donald, Guinness Beer Ambassador.
Correct.
I mean, we're here at Guinness. We're at the Holy Land, right? I mean, as you can see. So, you know, just to start off, I'm, you know, obviously really excited about Season 2. Thank you, Talend, for kicking off this next season. Again, here at Guinness, right? And we're just blown away by the facility. But what I think a lot of our watchers would love to talk about is just kind of the history of Guinness, right?
So, yeah. Well, I mean, certainly it's one of the most historic breweries that there is.
Yeah.
Totally. We've been, so I don't know if any of you have been to visit Guinness, but the first thing we always show our guests, even before they get a beer, is a copy of the original lease that Arthur Guinness signed for the brewery, right? And this was two things about this lease. First of all, he paid £100 as a deposit, right? Wow. Not bad.
Not bad.
Second of all, it was for 9,000 years. Also not bad.
Wow.
So yeah, so we would still have, we've got I think 8,741 years left to go. So we're not panicking. But that was in 1759. So that was 258 years ago. So it's been quite a while, you know. And we've been brewing here ever since. We have expanded from just 4 acres to what 55 acres now that we have. We've been exporting beer to the West Indies, all around Europe since the early 1800s. And then this beer that you're enjoying right now, Guinness Draft, which a lot of people just know as Guinness,
right.
Is actually one of our newer beers. I mean, this has only been around since 1959. And the key selling point on this was it was the first beer to use nitro gas in the world. So it was the first nitrogenated beer. So that's the reason it's so smooth and so creamy. And yeah, that was like whole new, or a whole fresh breath of air, I guess, into the brand.
Yeah, no, it's, you were mentioning earlier before we were kind of getting ready, it's easier to chug because of the nitro.
Well, we never chug a Guinness.
Well, right,
No.
And because we're here, and I'm glad I get to say this because I don't want to lose again. We will not be doing our beer Big Data chug, but
we say it takes so much effort to brew a beer so perfect that we respect the beer.
Yeah,
we respect the beer. We take our time with it. We enjoy it. Its appearance, its aroma, its flavor, and everything about it.
Well, and it's interesting too, given that kind of process. And again, when we were talking about this, there was kind of that misnomer that, oh, this tastes different here than what we get back in the States. And the reality of that really is that, you know, there's a step process that most of the breweries that allow you to have Guinness is supposed to have. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What are those 7 steps? Yeah.
So essentially, once the beer is brewed, I mean, if you're drinking a Guinness in Ireland, in the UK, anywhere around Europe, North America, it's all the same beer. It's all been brewed right here at St. James's Gate. So that's the first little, I suppose, myth to debunk is, oh, you know, they brew it somewhere else. Right. We do have breweries in Africa. They brew just for Africa. We do have breweries in Asia. They brew just for Asia. So if it's, you know, yourselves drinking a Guinness at home, it's from us. Okay. So when the beer is leaving the brewery, it's always got to be in spec. We're always going to make sure. I mean, there are over 250 quality checks done on every single brew. Every single brew.
That's a lot. That is a lot of data.
That's a lot of data.
I'd like to see that.
We keep that under wraps. You know, we keep that under our Guinness hats. So, but then in the bars, we have to make. Well, what we do is we when we're doing bar training is we encourage the 7 C's. Okay. All right. So the 7 C's. I mean, it starts with something simple, a clean glass. Okay, you would be shocked. Well, maybe not, but you would be very interested to know that like a clean glass is the fundamental basics of any beer. You get a greasy glass, your beer is ruined. It doesn't matter how good the beer is, as soon as it gets into the glass,
it's just over.
It's not going to do well. The second would be the correct gas mix. All right, so we've got something with Guinness where we do by 80% nitrogen gas and 20% CO2. Yeah. The nitrogen rises to the top and it forms that lovely foam. And I mean, you've been drinking those beers for quite a few minutes now, and you'll see you've still got the foam on the top. Yeah. So it's really important. If you were to get that gas mix wrong, either the foam would be too thick and the beer would be difficult to drink, or if the foam is too thin, your beer goes flat.
Interesting.
So it's really important. There is one of the C's which is mainly just about, I suppose, branding, but it's all about the counter visibility. So we always want the Guinness counter, you know, you see it, you know. Right. I think the stats say about 1 in 3 people don't know what they're going to order before they arrive at the bar. So it is important to obviously have that
Right, no, that makes sense.
So people know. You'd be one of those? Yeah, I was looking for something new. The correct temperature is important because, again, if beer is ice cold, and I mean ice cold, we don't taste it. Doesn't matter how good the beer is. If you serve it ice cold, you don't taste it. And if it's served too warm, sometimes you can get flavors that you might not necessarily want. So we want Guinness at 6 Celsius, which is about 42 Fahrenheit.
Okay. And
as close to that as possible. You've got consistent freshness, which means if the keg is hooked up for longer than 7 days, you change the keg. All right, you don't want any. Once the keg is hooked up, the beer can get oxidized.
Right.
So
yeah.
You don't want.
Ever last 7 days?
Not in Ireland. Not in Ireland. No, not in Ireland. There's like 88 pints in a keg.
There's another stat I'd like to know. How many go past 7 days?
Well, yeah, I'd rather not know that. Yeah. And then we've got the obviously the clean lines. You want clean lines at all times. And then the final one is just the crafted presentation. So when a pint of Guinness is poured, you always want the foam to just peak above the rim, no spillage, what we call tears. We don't want tears over the end, and the foam should be in spec. So we've got a specific head height that we're looking for as well. So that's pretty much it. You know, they're the 7 Cs. So that's a little bit of a quality lesson, I suppose.
No, that is it.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's really cool. Yeah, I never really thought about it, but I mean, you know, it's fascinating just the types of things and the craftsmanship that has gone into this.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think there's a number of craft breweries that we go to that would love to imitate that type of professionalism. For sure.
I mean, you know, that there's a lot of people that are making great beer, but just now they're focused on getting the beer right, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It took us quite a while to get to this level too. So
you have the recipe down there.
You could say that, yeah, you could say that, and quite a few. You know, people often think that Guinness just brews one beer because for our generation, this has been the most popular Guinness.
Right.
But you talk like before Guinness Draft ever came out, there was the Guinness Extra Stout, which you can still get today, but it's a much more traditional carbonated style of Guinness Stout. And now with I suppose the new, the world has just opened up now of beer ambassadorship and beer fandom over the last few years.
Beer fandom.
Thank you for keeping us in business.
There
beer
you go.
fandom.
Sláinte, as we say in Ireland, which means cheers. But so I mean, for I suppose 15 years ago, if Guinness came out with a new beer, which we did, we were always coming out with new innovations. People were kind of going, yeah, cool, but we like this.
Right.
Now today, everyone's going, yeah, I drink Guinness, but I also like a sour and an IPA, and I also like all this sort of stuff. So it's given us license to release a few more
People like
beers.
IPAs, Mark. I'm telling you.
You don't like IPAs?
I'm not a hophead. Learn that term.
There's a difference between a hop bomb and a nice, well-balanced IPA. You know,
I've actually had a few good, well-balanced IPAs that I do like. So.
We've got one in the States that's the Nitro IPA, which is it's not very bitter, but there's 5 hops. 3 of them are aromatic hops, and they've been used to dry hop.
I'll have to try that.
And it's as smooth as Guinness. So it's just like this, but with more of an amber honey color. So
yeah, that'd be perfect. Well, and you know, interesting. You mentioned just the variety of beers that you guys brew.
Yes.
There's been a new one within the last decade.
Correct. Yeah. But there have been quite a few within the last decade. I think the one that you're referring to is the Guinness Blonde American Lager. So this is something that we didn't just release for the sake of it. It's something that a lot of time and thought went into. But the simple fact of the matter is, if you look at the island of Ireland, there's 6 million change people.
Right.
In the US, there are about 32.5 million Irish Americans.
Wow.
All right. So you're talking 5 times and more as many. Now, a lot of those people love the idea of celebrating their Irish heritage, St. Patrick's Day, everything like that, but perhaps their palate isn't quite on the level of stout.
Right.
So there are people who go, I want to be as Irish as possible, but I drink an American light lager, something like that. So we said, well, why don't we take the brewing traditions of Guinness, we actually based the brewing in the US. So it was originally at the Latrobe Brewery in Pennsylvania. Now we have a new facility in Baltimore, which is working on all of our American innovations, and they are now taking the Blonde American Lager. So essentially what it is, it's a 5% ABV, nice malty lager. It would play in the same park as some of the other great lagers like Brooklyn Lager or Sam Adams or stuff like that. So it's a nice full-bodied malty flavor to it, and that's what it is. So it's from Guinness, so you can trust it. You know that our brewing expertise got into it, but it's got only the best American ingredients, American brewers, but a European brewing style.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and that's one of many. Like, look at for other beers, especially on US shores now, we've got a release of one of our old Belgian stouts that we sent over to Belgium in 1944, which is originally was called the Special Export, but the new branding is the Antwerp Stout, which is an 8% double malt extra stout.
That sounds delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah, it's decadent. You're going to sit over it, and you're going to take your time with it. You promise me you're going to take your time with it, all right?
I only chug the blonde.
Do not chug. Take your time with it, man. Respect the beer, as I always say.
Absolutely.
But that's the way it comes down to it. I mean, there's so much more on the horizon.
Right.
And like in 1959, when this was released, that was considered new. And people were kind of like, oh, what's this all about?
Whoa, hey now.
Look at it now.
Yeah, no,
so
it's fair.
There's always the way, you know?
Well, and so you've mentioned there's a wide variety. Can you even say about if you have a favorite?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I have no problem. So my approach to beer is the one of the famous phrase, different horses for different courses. So
Amen.
If I'm going to have a beer, catching up with a buddy on a Friday evening, it's always going to be Guinness Draft, right? It's such a great pub culture beer, nice, sessionable. You get to enjoy low alcohol by volume. So, you know, just a really nice beer to enjoy and have it with some food or something like that. But for instance, if I'm at home and I'm just going to have one or two beers, I'll probably go for something like the Guinness Foreign Extra Stout, which is the Guinness of choice in Africa and Asia. Huh. And it's quite a robust, strong stout. It's up at 7.5% ABV. It's a very high hop content, about 65 bitterness units IBUs in there, but there's a really nice sweet caramel flavor to it too. Okay. You can get that beer in the USA too, in case you're Foreign Extra Stout. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be probably my flavor-wise, that's my favorite. Getting back to your question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, this has been a wealth of information, not only for our viewers, but for us as well.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you taking the time.
You got it, man.
So we'll be back in a minute, get some of that technical stuff done. But again, you know, we're here at Guinness, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're back. I mean, from probably the best interview that we've had
Absolutely,
on this series.
by far.
Really informative. So for those of you that might be tuning in right now, my name is Nick Piette, Chief Evangelist at Talend.
I'm Mark Balkenende, Director of Technical Product Marketing at Talend.
And this is an episode of Craft Beer and Data. So, you know, over the last year, we had a number of episodes devoted to either types of data, new ways of processing data, or heck, really even just, you know, new data, anything about data. Today, we wanted to take a moment to talk about new ways of storing data and structuring that data, right? So if, you know, you're out there and maybe you've heard of the concept of a data vault, right?
Or even data lakes, and you're curious what data lakes are versus, and how do you structure the data in a data lake?
So let's touch on that to start. Mark, when you look at like a traditional data warehouse versus a data lake, what would you think are the differences?
Well, I personally, the number one biggest difference that I feel is data warehouses, you know, enterprise data warehouses, big or small, whatever the target is for your enterprise data warehouse. It's a very structured, transformed data, cleansed data. The data has to fit into the structure and the format of your star schema or your normalized forms. Versus data lakes, the objective of a data lake is really to give users access to the raw data.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that could be anything. It could be structured, unstructured, semi-structured. It could be JSON, XML, whatever, web logs. The data lake is really targeted to have the full raw data in it.
Okay.
That's the Mark Balkenende opinion.
Right. Well,
I know there's much more on it, but I'm really trying to summarize for those people that are like, I keep hearing this data lake term, and what is it?
Right.
And it's really to have the raw data that you can then build your reporting off of.
Okay. So then when we start looking at kind of the data warehouse versus the data lake, yes, and I do recognize that we might have skipped ahead, but as we were educated during the episode, we can't necessarily do a data chug
of Guinness.
Yeah, a big data chug.
So we're going to skip this one, and nobody wins or loses, right?
Thank goodness.
We talked about having, since we're in Dublin, in Ireland, having some people help you, some actual Irish people help you.
The amount of practice I went through to get ready for this season.
To maybe beat me.
Yeah. Well,
but we're not going to do it here because it's sacrilegious.
Right.
To chug Guinness.
When in Mecca, right? You got to respect.
Absolutely. So we're going to respect the beer.
Yeah. So we'll do a big data sip, and you got to keep the pinky out when you do this. And just you can get a cheers now. Right, so if you've seen our ad, chances are Mark struggles, or bloopers. Mark struggles with cheers. So this cheer, calm down, man, calm down. We got a whole episode. This cheers goes out to Qubel, right? Which if you've never heard before, is basically big data platform as a service. So Qubel guys, great working with you this week. Ready, Mark? Now remember, you clink glasses.
Oh, is that how you
drink? Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. All right, ready? Cheers.
Cheers. Wow.
It only took 32
And you
takes.
didn't swear at me either this time.
You know, I respect you enough not to this time. All right. So, anyways,
Back to
data.
back to the topic.
Right. So, I mean, we talked about the difference between the data warehouse as well as the data lake, and all of a sudden now with these changes, obviously the way that we structure and store that data is likely going to have to change as well.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we've seen a lot of our customers and people that we've worked with out in the field struggle with is when they're moving to the data lakes or these, Hadoop, HDFS file systems, S3, whatever, you pick your poison, whichever you want to store your data on. There's different vendors out there and different methods. The traditional, third normal form and slowly changing dimensions and fact tables and all that, it fails. It falls down in this new, I hate using the term big data world, but it fails in these big data technologies out there. It doesn't support the old star schema, and I say old as in the old trusted way of doing it. And the other thing I want to make sure I point out is we're not saying that data warehousing as we knew it for the last 20, 25 years is dying or going away.
Right, of course.
It's absolutely required and needed for for what it's been doing for years. And ERPs and CRMs and SFAs, they're not going away. Those systems are not going away.
Yeah.
And they're perfect for the structured, databases, enterprise data warehouses to do the exact analytics that they've been doing for years now. We're talking about the new forms of data and the new platforms that you're putting this data into that.
Yeah, well, you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, it's essentially.
I always do, Nick.
Well, but no, I mean, it's more of the fact that, look, for many of the developers, the types of data, either the structure or the way that it's coming in, doesn't necessarily allow you the time to have to try to cleanse it or really even maintain the kind of normalized form in terms of like what the data might look like. And that's, I think, traditionally what we've seen when it comes to trying to take either a star schema or the normal forms into kind of those structures for HDFS or S3 or Google storage, things like that. So,
and data quality is still very important.
Oh, absolutely.
But the value of the data lake, again, is having the raw data. And raw data is a double-edged sword, right? Because you have the raw data, and that's what I want. And I want to be able to look at my raw data and do all the things I want to do. But it also, raw data has bad data quality typically. There's always data quality issues. So, people are like, my data lake has bad data quality. But you wanted the raw data, the source data, whatever you call it. So you're naturally going to have that problem. So, but you still keep the raw data, but there's ways to take that data, keep it as close to native and raw as you can, and move it into a new type of methodology of storing your data.
Yeah, well, and I think the one that I'm most familiar with, the star schema, where you're going to have the fact tables and dimension tables. Like now that we're in this new data vault methodology, which I call it new, but it's been around and been tested for the last 2 decades.
Yeah, the founder of the methodology has been using it for the last 2 decades. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it different?
So you mentioned Datavault. I think that was the first time we brought it up. So Datavault is another methodology of storing your data. Yeah. In your data lakes. I mean, they work great as well in a lot of our relational databases, but they work well on file systems. It works well. It's a methodology of storing your data that's very different than, say, the star schema world. And the reason it's very different is because instead of focusing where star schema you build around the fact tables built on the transaction or built on what you want to report against, the data vaults are built on the business keys or what is the business key for, and it stores the data very close to the raw format. And then you have separate vaults or separate methods to build out your reporting or your operational data vaults, your information data vaults. But it stores it in a form that, one, is very agile to make updates and changes without impacting anything downstream.
That's very
amazing.
Important. Yeah.
And it keeps the lineage.
Lineage.
Yes, thank you.
I got you, big guy. Too many Guinnesses here,
English is my second language.
It's true.
I've been told by a few people.
No. Yeah, no. Which is actually, as you kind of mentioned, like the lineage of it, and as well as kind of the metadata of it too. You know, we constantly hear when people are trying to implement a data lake that those two things are absolutely critical for businesses to be able to actually successfully implement a data lake.
Absolutely.
So having that kind of built in is just foundational to the methodology itself.
So yeah, so if you're following, you know, the founder, Dan Lindstad, I have to give him a call out to him, and I'm 2.0 certified on Datavault, and I've actually implemented my first, well, I have to say my second, because our guy here at Talend, Dale Anderson, another big advocate of Datavault, would call me out probably on the message or something, that it's really my second attempt.
Right.
My first attempt was before I did the training, but you know, so I did the best I could. But my second attempt is much better, and so I've taken it, I've implemented, you know, using some of our internal data. It's, you know, it's real data, it's real stuff that's coming in, and it's very. The benefits are just beyond, you know, just real, and Dan Lindstad has done a great job documenting it. He does certifications on it and stuff like that. But the agile piece of it is what, you know, is one of the things that's the most impressive to me. Meaning, you know, I've built a lot of data warehouses and star schemas and all that in my career, and every time you get a new fact table or you get even a new attribute that gets added to, say, a dimension, or you get a new dimension, you have to update the fact table, you have to create the dimensions, you have to change it all, update it all, reload it all. Months later, you finally have this in production. And hope that's great. That's agile.
And you know, you hope that you still maintain referential integrity.
And your business isn't pissed off, or they no longer need the data, because half the time the business is like, I didn't need that anymore. I figured out how to get it. I went around you, blah blah blah. You know, so the Datavaults is a way. You know, they have a process. The methodology talks about hubs and satellite and link tables. And that's the essence of the data vault. And the ability to, what that gives you is you have hubs that represent, say, the business keys. So your customer, your user, you know, whatever the business recognizes, that's your hub. And then your satellites are the attributes. So what that does is anytime I have a new attribute, I add a new satellite. It's a new table in the schema. And I don't have to reload anything. I don't have to drop anything and reload and do all that stuff. I just I keep building out my hubs and my satellites and the links between them and representative. And it shows me how the data is represented in real life. It keeps the source data. Every time I get a new record, it shows me where it came from, when it was loaded.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
So I have all the lineage, so like, you know, HIPAA, you know, defense systems. You know, Dan talks a lot in his training about how this was used in defense contract companies and stuff like that, and it meets all their requirements for, you know, metadata and the traceability and things like that. It's very impressive.
Yeah, what was actually something as we were prepping for this episode you talked about, which is the methodology itself and the models that you can create really stand up against both batch-oriented processing as well as kind of these real-time streaming cases too.
Absolutely. If you follow the Datavault methodology, you know, and what the recommendations that has been put out there, the great thing is the data vault at every level, whether it's the raw data vault, the information data vault, they all will conform to both batch and real time. You have to make no changes. If you start out batch with your source of data and you want to turn it to streaming, like we talked last episode, or 2 episodes ago, actually, I think it was, whatever. Who's counting? Have another beer. It's you know, the model, the methodology supports it, and if you do it right, you actually don't have to change your model or anything. You just flip on the streaming and it can populate and go.
Yeah, so I mean, as we kind of been talking about,
with some Talend, you can flip it on the streaming.
Yeah, with Talend. But what's absolutely fascinating about this, and something that we've been talking about, is just oftentimes when we talk to customers that are trying to implement a big data solution and are trying to build a data lake, all of the cases where they fail, either they don't necessarily have the right information from a lineage perspective, they don't have the metadata, they're not able to actually handle the volumes that they're working with. This type of methodology really helps, in my mind, help prevent your data lake from becoming a data swamp. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it also overcomes one of the big challenges that we also see a lot in our professional services and our pre-sales people that are doing POCs and proof of values and things like that. Is everybody they've been in the relational database world for so long. They're used to the ACID transactions and the CRUD and updates and everything. And with the Datavault methodology, you no longer have the need to update. It's insert only. So it really fits well into the, I hate to say it again, the big data technologies that are out there that don't, I know listeners will be like, well, Hive has updates now and they support ACID transactions.
How's that again?
I got it. But it's still nowhere near the speed of relational databases.
Right.
Because relational databases, they've been around for 25, 30 years. They're tuned for that type of activity. So if that's what you want to do is update constantly, then maybe you just stick to relational databases, or other type of columnar databases that might be, suited for that type of stuff. But for this, for the data lakes and needing a methodology to really model your data, you're drinking too fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I couldn't enjoy my beer, Mark. For once, you have to have the conversation.
What are you saying? I don't contribute in the other videos?
I'm just saying, stealing my beer last episode was probably not the nicest thing you could have done. I'm still angry about it.
Well, you weren't drinking it.
Well, I'm sorry. There needs to be information as well as the consumption. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as you kind of mentioned. Right. As you kind of mentioned, the traditional data warehousing and the star schema and relational forms, those aren't necessarily going away. Right. This is definitely for a new type of use case and things like that. And one of the things that calls out is that while this is a huge benefit to be able to handle some of those insert-only types, it does require you to have a little bit more awareness of the business problem, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to help define the hubs and things like that, right?
And the business should be involved, and that's all part of when you dig into what Datavaults are. You'll learn, there's the very tight. It's not only just a methodology for modeling, but it's really a methodology for agile development processes for your modeling and to be successful. If you do the training with the Datavault training experts out there, they focus not only just on data modeling, but also the methodology and the practice around implementing an agile data model. Because it's very different. Traditionally, data modeling and data warehouses are not typically agile. It's not something you focus agile. It's more waterfall, where you do an implementation, you test. And this is really more of a much more agile type environment that they've built this methodology around. I thought he said it was lower alcohol content.
No, calorie content. Calorie content, right? We got to watch our figures. So actually you brought up a very interesting point. So if I'm really interested in understanding this Datavault concept a little better, where should I go?
Well, I would definitely, there's some great places. Dan Lindstadt's website. I forgot it off the top of my head. I just heard it earlier, but I would definitely look for Dan Lindstadt's and his organization. It's been going on. It's version 2 now. They have a great book too that you can get. I think version 2.0 of the certification is just, or the book is coming out soon. They haven't released the book yet, but all the training. So I just did the training about 6 months ago, and I'm certified in the 2.0 version now, which is great. I actually waited for that training to come out instead of getting certified on the old version. And some good differences between the two. If you do know Datavaults and you've only done the .5 I think, or .6, the 2.0 is the one that addresses a lot of the differences for real time, for the Hadoop and environments, the HDFSs and stuff like that. And I see you finished your beer. And there's also a couple other companies out there that are certified to train on Datavaults. There's the Datavault World Conference out there that Dale Anderson from Talend.
Speaking of which, we are sponsoring that again this year. So if you'd like to meet us at that Datavault conference, we'll definitely be there. I think that's a kind of a key point that we can take away is that ultimately there's a lot of information about this new way of modeling your data, the methodologies of that, and essentially it's
Yeah, I think, just before we close too, because I got the sense that maybe because you finished your beer, you want to end, or
Well,
we
here,
get you
I'll
another.
just, I will help you there, sir.
Well, somebody had to provide all the information on this topic, but anyway.
Wow.
I think the.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah.
I'm hurt, Mark.
It's okay. I'm sorry, Nick. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
This week on Craft Beer and Data, I'm Nick. Mark's gone. No, I'm just kidding.
I do want to say, from my experience, like I said, I have built data warehouses and operational data stores, in the real world. I got certified on Datavault, and I'm building a Datavault at our internal IT, for our internal IT at Talend, on some data internally, on using the Datavault methodology on Snowflake.
Yeah.
And I love Snowflake. And I love Datavaults. I'll tell you, Datavault has a lot of great advantages, and I hope you heard that throughout this, where I felt the advantages are, and Agile is a huge part of it. Not having, because I'm shadow IT, because I'm in marketing and I'm doing this Datavault.
You
for
are
IT.
shadow IT. Let's not put the parentheses around it.
Well, I'm the antithesis. So I'm building this Datavault for reporting on internal numbers for IT. And so it's real data. It's a real example. I'm not just kidding around here. I'm not just playing, building demos or whatever. It's a real thing. And I can see the real value in Datavaults over the traditional star schemas and the traditional data warehousing practices that have been practiced for years. There is real value there, and I urge and I deploy people to go check this out, because you will see some real advantages. Because the Agile piece is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I do it on the side, so I'm going to do this part. Yeah. And then next week I'll come back, or next month or whatever, when I have free moments, I'm going to come back and build this part.
Right.
And it doesn't impact that part. I can push this all the way out to production, and it can be successfully deployed, running safely.
Yeah.
And I can go start developing and add this piece, and I don't have to reload everything. It's great. It's got some really good advantages to it from a real world experience. So I just wanted to put that out there.
That's a very valuable piece to that, and I think at the end of the day, right, this is something that a lot of the data engineers should seriously take a look at. As I mentioned,
data architects, data engineers,
exactly.
Absolutely.
We're sponsoring the Datavault conference this year. We're looking forward to meeting many of you on this topic. So I think at that point, can I close it now, Mark?
Yeah, you can.
Is there anything else? It's a safe space, my friend. Oh, see, folks, let's be honest.
I didn't have to finish that.
Right, exactly. Folks, let's be honest here. All right, it was more about this.
No, I wanted to get it out there.
Oh, of course. No, I hear you.
This isn't just marketing or anything like that. I'm doing this for real.
Right. It's Mark's pride in any sense of the term. No.
Both.
Well, it's the pride of the drink or the pride of the work you've done. No, and I seriously mean in the sense that this is something you should seriously take a look at. I can't tell you how many times. I think, far more often than not, big data projects tend to fail, primarily because they don't understand the business need, and second of all, they don't have the metadata to really start kind of figuring out what's going on. They don't have the lineage to understand the history of it. So implementing a methodology like this is it's an absolute critical, in my opinion.
And you can't solve the new world problems with old world methodologies.
Couldn't agree more.
This is a new methodology for the new world.
Yeah.
And I think if you're venturing into these new platforms and new types of data, you really need to stop thinking about the old way and look at new ways. And this is one of the ways that's been hugely successful for many of our customers and people out there. The just success story after one after another. So
no, it's extremely powerful. So we'll put in the comments some places where you can find additional information about Datavault. Again, thank you so much for watching this episode of Craft Beer and Data. My name's Nick.
I'm Mark, straight from Dublin.
Straight from Dublin. Catch you in the next one.